Well, good Thursday evening, everyone, and welcome to Bowling with the Pheff. I'm Andrew Pfeffer, based in Altoona, Wisconsin, which is basically a suburb of Eau Claire, Wisconsin, if you're familiar with the state. We're up on the western side of the state, and the purpose of this show is to talk bowling. We tell people's unique bowling stories through an interview format, and we are always looking for guests. If you are interested in coming on the show, let me know. The email is bowlingwiththepheff@yahoo.com. You can find me on Facebook, just under Andrew Pfeffer, and I would be happy to talk to you about the show. Tell your unique bowling story in a live format on our YouTube channel, which has been growing really every day, which I'm proud to say. It's kind of a labor of love. I love to do it, and I'd be happy and really honored to tell your unique bowling story if you're willing. Again, bowlingwiththepheff@yahoo.com is the email address, and I hope to speak with you sometime soon. Now, tonight we have as our guest for a show that we are calling Momma Peacock Rising. We have Nichole DePaul. And did I pronounce that right, Nichole?
Yes, sorry, you did. Yeah.
Okay. She is from Fayette, Iowa.
Correct.
Which is on the eastern side of the state.
Yep.
She's the head. She's the head coach of Upper Iowa University men's and women's bowling teams and a PWBA player. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we were talking beforehand, and I just wanted to thank you, now on air, for following the show. You've seen a few episodes, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate that.
Yeah, you've had several people I know on the show. I watched John Janowitz and Deandra Aspady, Shannon O'Keefe. Can't think. There's a few more I've seen, and I love what you're doing for us in our industry. It's always fun seeing others interview friends and family and people we love in this industry, and I get a kick out of some of the conversations y'all have when they're on your show.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you were willing to come on too. I like to think this is fun for the interviewee as it's fun for me to learn all about, folks like you. And, hey, as long as people are willing to watch, we're going to keep on doing it. Let's start out, away from Iowa and college bowling and talk about Jillian Martin, who became the youngest PWBA champion this week.
Yeah.
What is that like to see that, to witness that?
It scares me. That's all I'm going to say. It scares me. So when the tour came back in 2015, I know we had an influx of talent potentially coming from college bowling at the NCAA level, USBC level, NAI level. And even the last year, we've had all of this talent come, and it almost like hits me with a 2x4 because I look around and I'm thinking, where have I been the last 5 years? What we see in this sport, and these youth players are so dedicated to getting better and bowling junior gold, prepping for Team USA, and watching her. I knew it was coming. I didn't think it was this soon. I watched part of what she was doing in January when they had the first of the three stops at the ITRC, and I was like, I don't think I want to bowl against her anytime. She's got some of the most mechanically sound physical game. Her mental game is amazing. I don't know. I have a feeling, depending on what her plans are, if she's going to go to college or if she's going to go to college and still potentially bowl, that girl's going to be rookie of the year. If she decides she's going to bowl all 4 years in college, and then after she graduates, yeah, she'll be rookie of the year and a PWBA player of the year, without a doubt.
Yeah, it's incredibly impressive, and really cool to see all the people coming out, with great things to say about her and her game and her accomplishment. It's just a special time in bowling as a whole.
Absolutely. As we start to grow the sport at the youth level, and it trickles into the college bowling level, and then those college players are getting opportunities of a lifetime, which I, as a college player, didn't get a chance to have, and they're getting more games in. They're bowling on more and more harder and difficult formats. They're bowling on harder sport patterns, and so all of that combined with the mental game and their motivation and desire to become great is now going to show its head in the PBA and the PWBA. I think of like one of my teammates on staff, Matt Russo, who won a PBA title, Jonesboro, I think it was, over the last week. Think he bowled college. So those younger players are an older player like me is going to be kicking my butt every single time I'm out there. So I think it's great. I love it.
Yeah, me too. It's cool to see. Speaking of younger players, tell us a little bit about your experience this past weekend at the National Junior Team Challenge in Delaware.
So I was asked to coach one of the U under 18 team at the tournament on Sunday. And the reason I was asked, two of my players on my men's team was bowling the tournament. And the person, the mom who organized the two teams said, "Hey, if you're free, you want to come out and coach this team?" I was like, let me look at my schedule. And then I realized how that was also tied into bowling singles and doubles Friday and Saturday. And to see the amount of players and the talent in a building like that, it's impressive. I get blown over by junior gold, but when you're going to a small tournament like this and you're seeing players coming from like California was represented this weekend. Imagine the travel going from California to Delaware and trying to bowl. We had players from Florida, players from even in the Midwest, Iowa, Illinois. We had a lot of parents say, well, we decided to drive because it was so much easier to get to Delaware than trying to make the journey with flying and equipment. Billy did a great job running the event. It was awesome. It was hot. It was sticky, but when you walk in there and you see all the players, it's great. It was great. It was awesome.
Yeah. It's one thing to be impressed by the talent and all the people coming out. It's another to tell what parts of this event either guys on your team or other teams will kind of parlay into a college career. Yeah. Did you see anything there? Any telltale signs?
So how the tournament was set up, you had it set up by the division. So it was like the 14 and under group and then the 18 and under group. And by doing it this way, even though I was there to coach a team, the other 2 days of the tournament, I was recruiting and looking and watching and interacting. And so having the ability to have all of the players in one space and still have the opportunity to go down to the 14 and under and maybe look at some freshmen or some eighth graders and then go and look down at the under 18, it was helpful because every college coach will tell you, we are not only recruiting for the class of whatever, like right now we're doing 22 and 23s. We are looking beyond that because as college bowling gets bigger, we're having to compete more and more and more with college programs across the United States. And so if we want to bring in the right people, we have to go after them. Well, at least on the men's side with NCAA, I've got to follow different rules, but at least knowing you're going after them and you're seeing them, I almost felt like I was overwhelmed, and normally I'm more overwhelmed at junior gold because we're going to 4 different centers on the week, that whole week. But seeing so much talent, we had junior gold junior Team USA members. We had junior gold winners. We had future U12 potentials. Billy did a fantastic job running that tournament. And my plan is next year to go and then also take a couple of the men and the women on both of my teams and bring them because they will be able to compete in the under whatever division, whatever division that is.
Yeah, whatever one they fit into.
Whichever one they fit in, yeah.
Yeah, I watched a little of the live stream of the Storm coverage on Sunday, and Leanne Hulsenberg was talking about the condition being pretty flat and with quite a bit of volume. How did your team kind of maneuver that?
I had a goal for them when I'm the type of player, there's a couple of things on the lane pattern sheet I look at. Other than that, my focus is what are we seeing on the lanes as we get out there instead of trying to make a guess and then it's wrong. And so Having 46 feet, that's a lot of length. The surface was HPL, looked like an older surface, higher friction. I was hoping if we played a more direct line into the pocket, it was going to work. And then it didn't. So we were dealing with surfaces. The way the rotation schedule worked out, we were moving one direction. We were starting on the right lane, so we moved to the right. The team on the left lane was moving to the left. So then our cross was random and the different players coming out. We had some players who were playing more straight. We had some players who were trying to play the inside out. And we did great going into qualifying. We made it into the top 20 and got a bye in the first round. And then going into the second round of the match play, we lost our match. We tried so hard. What got us was our spare shooting. This pattern was all about spare shooting. I don't care what anybody says. If you were missing spares, you are not going to make it into the next round. It really, yeah. And one of my players on the team who was bowling the tournament says, "Hey, coach, could we have this pattern put out for practice one day?" I was like, "Abso-freaking-lutely. Yeah, we're going to take this pattern and put it out. I want to bowl on it. I want to see, our surface is different here, but I still want to see how is it shaping the same way? Did I make the right ball choices?" It was not the chatter amongst the bowlers, the youth players who are junior gold players and Team USA players was like, holy cow, this was hard.
Yeah. How does that feel to have your guys, not only come into a tough situation, have some success, but also kind of embrace that and say, okay, this was tough, but I want to go back home. I want to hone in my skills on this shot. So the next time I go out there, I'll be that much better for it.
No, it's great. I appreciate the willingness of getting this pattern out on the lanes to see what it's going to do. I'm curious as a whole. The players I've got on both of my teams have the ability to create the shot together. And so I think they're going to start learning how to play a pattern the way it needs to be played rather than trying to play their own physical game or try to play it based on what they think it needs to be. One of our players came out to watch from New Jersey, and he has sent me a whole lot of patterns for one of these tours. He in the New Jersey area, he bowls on a tour over there. And so he's also sent me patterns the tours used, and he goes, I want us to practice on these too. I want to see what they're going to do when we have our team out there. I love it.
Yeah, that's great. So, we've got to get, way before all this pattern talk and get to a point where you started bowling. You started pretty young, it sounds like. And, back then we're just trying to get the ball on, down the lane. But tell me about how that all started for you.
So my mom and dad were bowlers back in Illinois. I grew up in Joliet. Not in Joliet. I say Joliet, Illinois, because most people don't know my little hometown called New Lenox. And they bowled together in leagues and I guess decided one day they were going to take my sister and I bowling. I was about 3 years old from what I understand. And I know. And I was chucking it down between my legs down the lanes. And it was about the time where PWBA was starting to form back in 1980, when my dad said, why don't we have you join a youth league? And started off as a bantam bowler. No bumpers, nothing. No, none of that. No. And my sister joined with me a couple of years later. She's 2 years younger than me. And I fell in love with it. My gosh, anytime there was a youth tournament, I'm like, Dad, sign me up. Dad, take me to this. Mom, take me to this. Dad, take me to this. I fell in love with it a lot more than my sister did. She decided to do softball instead of me. And so instead of doing what I do. And so we did it and bowled it. And Mom and I won a bunch of youth adult tournaments together. And Dad and I won a bunch of youth tournaments together, adult youth. And then I started to do travel leagues and took it really, really seriously, probably, I would say around 7th or 8th grade in middle school. And when I turned 16, my dad's like, here you go, have fun, start bowling more tournaments. And I didn't know if I was ever going to have the ambition to get to the point where I could say I could become a professional. I felt it was more of something for me to do than to really go out and make a career out of it. And and so I graduated high school in 94 and kind of was on the fence of what I was going to do next. Went to college and now here I am.
I would assume, not having intimate knowledge of the bowling scene in the Chicagoland area back then, but, just knowing what I know about Milwaukee, there must have been a pretty robust junior scene there in the 80s.
And it is still there. So what I love when I go home, when I am able to go back to the Joliet area, the centers I grew up in, Strike and Spare 2 in Lockport, Illinois, Town and Country Lanes in Joliet, what is now, I can't remember the name. Oh, it used to be Pioneer Lanes, now Plainfield Lanes in Plainfield, Illinois. The center in New Lenox, which used to be Country Lanes, is no longer Country Lanes. It's now a different name. Those centers still have youth leagues. They still have high school bowling. They're still hosting tournaments. The Town and Country did a PBA 50 regional a few weeks ago. And so whenever I am home, there is a tournament going on somewhere, whether it's a junior tournament, an adult tournament, a PBA, PBA 50. And then this coming year, next year, Queens is coming back to the Chicagoland area. And so going to Stardust. Yeah. Anytime I go home, one of the first questions I ask some of my kiddos who are from the area, are there any tournaments going on this weekend? And if there are, where are they? So I can bowl.
Cool.
Yeah. It's impressive. Like Milwaukee too. Milwaukee's the same way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Not as many centers as there used to be, but when you have the enthusiasm among the community, it shows.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And even in Milwaukee, when I lived in Milwaukee for a couple of years, all the AMF centers, Classic Lanes in Greenfield. I loved that center. I would bowl there twice a week when I lived in Milwaukee. I did not get a chance to do a lot of tournaments in a little bit north of Milwaukee. Maybe I was in Sheboygan once or twice. Did go to Green Bay a lot for Ashwaubenon. I always say that a lot. Yeah. So that tells you how old I truly am if I say that. So
Ashwaubenon's still there.
I know. We go there now for one of the men's tournaments. We go up there at least once a year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I'm hoping they'll cycle back through on the women's tour. We'll get a chance to go up there for Queens again one day because I'd love to go back.
Yeah, for sure. So you get into high school. Is there a high school team that you compete on, or do you just kind of continue individually?
Sadly, no. So Lincoln Way, before they all broke up, so Lincoln Way had Lincoln Way Central, which was our freshmen through seniors. And then we had Lincoln Way East, which was freshmen and sophomores during the time I was going there. And the year I was graduating, they were making a decision about adding high school bowling to Lincoln Way. And it lost out to women's or girls badminton. And then a year, I want to say it's probably a year or 2 years later, my sister would know this. She had graduated in 96, is when they went ahead and added high school bowling to Lincoln Way. And then they split up into 4 schools. They're now 3 again. And Lincoln Way West, and I apologize if I have any of my alumni out there, my Knights fans from Lincoln Way Central. I'm sorry to say this. Lincoln Way West has probably got, where I grew up, they have got one of the best high school programs in the Will County in New Lenox. They started from ground zero and worked their way up. 2 of my good friends I've known when we were junior players in New Lenox are running the program. They're the Scott Yulian is coaching the women's team, and then Scott Jakubowski, I think I said that right. He is also from the same area, and he's running the men's team. And they're so close to winning a state title. They're so good. Maybe Central will get there one day. Sorry, Knights. I don't know. Maybe if I go back, maybe they'll take me back. Maybe I can back and bowl for them.
You never know. You never know. Were there any coaches that you kind of leaned on back then in those early days, either your parents or somebody through the junior program that, really helped kind of set you on your way?
Wow, you asked me such a difficult question, and do I remember any of this? My dad coached me a lot from the time I started throwing a bowling ball until probably 16 or 17 years old. And like any dad, I love you, like any father-daughter type of athletic relationship, I would fight him on stuff.
Mhm.
So I think after a while, he left me alone. And then I started working with, oh my gosh, the name eludes me right now. It was someone who worked with us at Strike and Spare at the youth program. We had double shifted youth league there. And so there were a few people who helped us out. And there was one gentleman in particular, and the name eludes me right now. I apologize. He helped me out anytime I struggled and answered my questions for me and asked me questions about what I wanted to do. And overall, though, I think my dad has been through with me the most up until about the time I went to college.
Yeah. And tell me about that. You went to Illinois State. What was the team like there?
Interesting. So they're a club team. We are a club team. And so us Redbirds came from different parts of from the state of Illinois and outside the state of Illinois. And we had, at that time, Illinois State had one of the best collegiate programs in the state outside of Western Illinois. And they had a lot of great winners on that team during the time period from like early 80s all the way in through until I went there. And then we had some great talent on both teams and had some interesting chemistry and just like any other typical team, some drama and all that. But it was fun. I enjoyed it for the time I was there.
Yeah. What did it teach you about the college game?
Hard.
Yeah.
It was different. So you don't think about the team aspect when you're a junior bowler. Because you've got it during that time, you had your team tournament at the local level or the city level, and then you had your state tournament. They didn't have a lot of national tournaments during the time I was bowling, junior youth bowling back in the early 80s and 90s. And so when I got to college, I did not have the mindset of team. And so I think that may have prevented me from doing it further and getting more involved in it. And so with college, I had to reprogram myself and go, I need to be a team player. And unfortunately, I didn't act like a team player. And so when I think about both of my teams and I think about all the college programs out there, we have to remind our kids, our players, this is not always about you. It's about the team. We're here together. We've got to figure out a way to win together. And so it was a hard lesson for me to learn.
Yeah. So, going back to the individual part of this, January 27th, 2000, you had your first adult 300 at Pheasant Lanes in Bloomington, Illinois.
Did you look that up?
I look up a lot of stuff.
Yes, I did. Oh my gosh. I did. Yeah. It was my first adult 300 game. And I did it in front of, I'm going to cry. I don't want to cry. I can't believe you brought that up. I threw it in front of my friends on my team. It was a ladies' league. I had some of my some former ISU women's players in the league, and it was thrown on my grandfather's birthday. My grandfather had passed away in 1997 while I was in the middle of my first semester at ISU, and my grandfather was an engineer, and so I loved science. I loved everything about engineering and chemistry and physics. And he was instrumental in my decision of getting my bachelor's degree in chemistry. And so when I threw the 300, I was shaking. The first shot, I was like, okay, I'm good. I'm fine. I'm great. And I would breathe. Then I would, oh my God. Then I go up for my 11 shot and I'm standing there and I'm going, I can't throw the bowling ball. I'm going to miss. And I breathe, and then I throw. And then the 12 shot, I think if you had talked to any of the ladies who were behind me and all the people who were behind me, they would tell you I was shaking so much. And I screamed so loud when the ball hit the pocket and it struck. And I was like, oh my God. I was on my knees. Yeah. Wow. That brings back, I don't have it in my office. It's back at home, but I have Pheasant Lanes gave me a cup or a glass. It's got all that stuff on there. And yeah, it was wow, that brings back memories. I haven't thought about that. It's been 21 years.
You always remember your first, right?
Oh my gosh, you do. And what's sad is I don't have a sanctioned 800 series.
Okay,
but I'm close.
Yeah. Next week you take care of that, and then we can put it on the Facebook page and all as well.
Yeah, we have league coming up soon, so maybe I will. I don't know.
There you go. You ended up working for USBC, like you said, when it was in suburban Milwaukee. What was your job there?
I was a research engineer. I did testing on bowling balls, lane surface. I helped with the sport bowling program when it first started. A lot of R&D type work. Worked with different bowling centers to help with the sport bowling patterns and making sure it was in the right parameters. Gathering scores, helping with when the original website came out for sport bowling, all the scores and the leagues and everything. And yeah, it was my first job out of college, and I was quite surprised I got that job. Yeah.
You also have history at the Kegel Company in Florida, and that's where John Janowitz has been for many years. So you got to tell me, how you guys crossed paths and what your experience with him was like.
So I'll take a step back a little bit. With my time at USBC, when they used to be called WIBC, I was part of the equipment specifications committee. And what they did is we met 3 times a year in Greendale. And on the committee were people like Mo Pennell, John Davis, Lenny Nicholson, and so on. And so John Davis was intrigued by me, and he goes, "So, interested in coming to Kegel?" I was like, "Why?" He goes, "You've got an interesting point of view on this industry. You are female. We would love to have somebody with a chemistry background come down and work with us." And I worked in the chemical department and did R&D work on the lane machines, and got taught how to build a lane machine from the ground up. I got to work with the late John Forrest, and he taught me lane pattern work. And then JJ and I talked, and he started showing me things about lane patterns. And then I learned about topography, and then John Davis took me under his wing for a while. And I, halfway through working with them, I had to rebuild a Century 100. I think it was a Century or a pad machine. It was a Phoenix 8 pad machine. I needed to figure out how these things worked, and so I had to open up the area where the oiling compartment's at and pull the pads out, put it all back together. And I literally got my hands dirty at Kegel, and that's how I learned a lot of what I do right now, and tie into everything that I do. It's really, it's awesome. JJ. I love JJ. When I see him, when we run into each other, we'll hug, we'll say, "Hi, how are you?" And we always talk about the different adventures he does, because he's got this flair for clothing. I'm sure you've seen some of it.
Yep.
And I've never fully appreciated it in person. I see it on pictures when he posts it, and his love for desserts. That man can eat more dessert in 1 hour than I probably can in the entire month and still look like he looks. If I remember, he works out like 2 to 3 times, 2 to 3 hours a day or whatever. And I'm thinking, if only I had the ability to do it.
Right. If only any of us did, right?
Right. So I know when I see him, I haven't seen him in such a while. He does a lot of the college tournament, at least the USBC college events, like sectionals. Mm-hmm. He ends up not getting assigned to the one I go to. So I'm hoping maybe this USBC, if you're listening in Kegel, please assign JJ to my sectional so I
Yeah.
can JJ and I go way back. It's cool. He's such a great person.
Yeah, definitely a great perspective on the sport. If you have a chance, the last episode was with him. I hope all of you watching will check it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, we kind of move out to 2013, where you're the runner-up at the Badger Queens.
You
Wisconsin.
looked that up too? Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah.
Tell me about that tournament. How did it go for you?
So they did it set up with a qualifying block, and then they make a cut, and then another section of qualifying block, and then you make a cut into the top 5. I believe that was the format back in 2013. It's been 2013. No, 2003. 2003.
Oh.
Yeah. I was like, 2013, I was in Florida. No, I was in Texas in 2004. Yeah. No, I was in Texas in 2003.
I can't keep up with all your moves, but at some point you finished runner-up there.
I did. 2003, yeah.
Was that in Green Bay?
It was in Green Bay at Wabanon.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I love that center too.
Yeah.
So going into the last game of the second cut, I needed to shoot, I think, a 230 or higher to make it into the top 5. I wail off, I don't remember, 7 in a row or 8 in a row. I ended up shooting 268 to get into the 4th seed.
Oh.
Yeah. And then I ran the ladder and came across a foe and friend, Robin Crawford Orlikowski, who lived in Wisconsin, and now she lives in Michigan. And she and I were back and forth. And if I remember correctly, and if she's listening, she may be able to remember this too. I think we were neck and neck going all the way into the 8th or 9th frame. I think it was the 8th frame. And she had thrown a strike, so I was up. I left a pocket 9. Yeah. And then she rang off a couple, I think 1 or 2 more strikes to win. I think I don't remember the scores. And it was frustrating because the pocket 9 is something I rarely leave. And so you could hear there was a whole bunch of people around us. Oh my God. Oh no. And she's such a fantastic player. She's a former Team Canada player. She bowled in college too. She's a national champion. And bowling against her, it was frightening because I know what she's capable of doing. And she ended up winning the match and won the title.
Yeah. At some point, you decide to join the PWBA. Tell me when that was and what kind of you factored in when you were making that decision.
I didn't get a chance to compete in the women's tour when it was around back in the early days. I had been so focused on getting into the industry, being a chemist and learning about the ropes of bowling. I missed out on the opportunity. And looking back at my career as a whole, I wish I would have gone out in 2000 through 2003 before it had shut down. Yeah. Because my career during that time on the lanes, I mean, I was bowling everything and anything. I was winning singles titles. I was winning all events. I was breaking a city record. And so I felt like, I should go out, and I never did. So when I got the announcement and the rest of us did, wow, the tour's coming back, I went, okay, maybe I should go and do this. And I had so much support behind me. I felt like this is the right time. I wanted to go out there. I wanted to try it for the first time. I wanted to see what it was all about and travel and meet people. And really, ultimately, it helped me connect with a lot of people in the industry I hadn't seen in a long period of time in my career. And so I did it. I signed up. I decided I was going to do part of the Midwest portion of the swing when it started. I had lived in Houston at the time, and so it was easier for me to drive to Lubbock, Texas, drive to Wichita, Kansas, drive to Topeka to go to them. And let me tell you something, Lubbock, eye-opening, because I was sore and tired and frustrated. I had not bowled that many games in one day in my entire career on the lanes. My mental game was fried because I knew I was not ready for this tournament at all. I was not ready. So then I took I think it was like a couple of weeks. Then I went to Wichita, and Wichita, the first black, I was plus. That's another center I love, North Rock. Great
Oh
center.
yeah.
Love North Rock. Frank DeSocio, fantastic person. He's knows how to host a tournament. So I was plus in the first part of the block, and then I fried in the second block, and I missed out on that. And then I went to Topeka, and short patterns at the time were my nemesis. And so I think I averaged like 150 or 160. It was horrible.
Yeah. It's, it's crazy. I mean, I was watching a video that you recorded in some airport where you were talking about starting on the tour and how this is living your dream. Yeah. But then you kind of go out there and it sounds like it wasn't really what you expected, both in the length of the games, of the tournaments and, formats and things like that.
No, it wasn't. You don't think about, until you talk to someone and you experience it, you don't think about the number of games you're bowling, what time you have to get up, how late you're staying up, what food you're eating, mentally, what you have to think about when you're out there. And it really opened my eyes to what we do now. And I look at it now, I'm like, I'm part of that. And so I think about what we do now. It is mentally draining, physically exhausting, and sometimes lonely. And that the lonely part is what got me. I am the type of person, I love to have people around me, and I love to have people behind me supporting me. And it was such a lonely time for me. It really made me think, is this something I want to keep doing? Is this something I want to keep pursuing? And 2015 was the year.
Yeah. So then a couple of years later, though, you had a second place finish at the PWBA Diamond Joe Midwest Championship.
I did. Yeah.
So what happened there?
All of a sudden things started to click. So I'm part of the Brunswick Brands. I'm on the DV8 team. And so with the exception of this year and last year, we would all meet together for a camp in April, and we would spend 2 to 3 days together, and our tour reps would come out and they would work with us. And so Chuck Gardner, who is one of our tour reps, and Eric Krause, John Bercier, Jeffrey Smith, Brian O'Keefe, not all of them are there at the camps, but they all talk to each other. And Chuck Gardner, who I look up to for what he does for us in this industry and for what he does for youth bowling, would tell me, and he still tells me this to this day when I talk to him. He goes, "Be you, Nichole. Your physical game is beautiful. Stop thinking so much about everything and focus on what your game can do for you." And it just clicked all of a sudden. It was like, oh my gosh, he's right. And being technical, chemistry degree, engineer, I think about all the technical stuff. I forgot about what got me here. And so I started off really, really strong at that tournament. And I was leading for a few of the rounds. And then I hit a really bad pair, and it spiraled for a little bit. And then I got it back and ended up finishing second. And so having that opportunity, knowing I can do well at a regional, and then knowing I could take that on into the rest, like 2018 and beyond, on the women's tour and the full tour, I was like, let's go. I'm doing full tour in 2018. I don't care. Nothing's going to stop me. I'm going to do the whole tour.
Yeah. So tell me, at what point did it happen that coaching was the route that you wanted to go, professionally?
So when I lived in Houston, I met Brad Hagan, who is the coach for Sam Houston State National Champions, of course. Mm-hmm. And I bowled at Emerald Bowl in Houston during my time there, and he was hosting his Cat Clash NCAA tournament there. He was looking for some assistant officials to help run the tournament, and he asked if I wanted to do it. I said, sure, why not? it'll give me a chance to see college bowling, or at least on the NCAA side, and then also get a chance to talk with some of the coaches who are friends of mine I've known before getting into this coaching. And when I walked in the door and saw all of these teams from across the Midwest and the Northeast and the East Coast and the Southeast, NCAA level, women's bowling, wow. It was, I want to do this. Mm-hmm. I want to go out and I want to coach and I want to help the future of our sport to the next level so we can get them continuing on. And then one of my players coaches another team one day and you know, that process.
Yeah.
And so in 2000, I want to say it was 2017, I had been the head official for his tournament for 2 years. And so I asked Brad, I said, so Brad, do you know anybody who's looking for a college coach? Because it's something I am ready to do. And he goes, well, why do you want to do it right now? I said, I feel like me being an educator, I had taught chemistry and college chemistry for 12 years at that time. I went, okay, I think it's time I move on into something else. And I wanted to get back into the sport I loved. And PWBA was rare and it was going crazy. And the PBA was getting even more intense. And I said, let me know what you see and hear and find, and we'll go from there. And he goes, okay, I'll let you know. And so he kept me up to date and we kept in touch, and he asked me to do another year of being a head official. And he said, here's a job opportunity I think you should try. I had moved back up to Illinois, and he said, this is close to home. Go for it. See what happens. I was like, okay, yeah. And here I am at Upper Iowa.
And that was Upper Iowa. So,
yeah.
You know, so tell me about, you know, when you first maybe talked to the folks over there or stepped on campus. What was it that, you know, kind of hooked you?
I had been, let me see, I have to go back in my memory banks. I had been on the road doing something, I think a conference or something for chemistry at the time. And I was on my way back, and my sport administrator, who is my sport administrator, he contacted me and said he was going to be in town close to where I lived in Illinois. And if there was an opportunity for us to potentially meet to discuss this coaching position. And I was like, yeah, so let me know what works out for you. This is when I'm going to come back into town. And he was available a certain night. We met up and talked at Plainfield Lanes in Plainfield, Illinois. And he reminded me during the entire conversation, well, Fayette is a small town. Fayette is a small town. And I said, I'm not worried about it being a small town. I'm getting to do what I love, and I'm not worried about it. And they went through the process of offering me an official visit and an official interview. And anyone who knows what it's like to live in a big city and goes to a small town, when you're driving from Chicago area to Fayette, Iowa, a lot of it's corn and side roads and back way. And I'm driving from near my mom and dad and driving up Interstate 39 and then Interstate 90 and then US 20 through Galena Park. And we're getting closer and closer to, I'm going, oh my gosh, I don't know how I feel about this. What got me, and I think a lot of people will say this if you ask them, there is this entrance, we come in from one of the country roads. You go over this hill and you see the football stadium. That's what got me. That was how I knew I was home. And the minute I got onto campus, I did my visit. I had a tour. Everyone would say hello to me and they would say, hey, coach, how are you? And I'm thinking, but I haven't been offered the job yet. Okay. And what we do here is we have our coaching staff, our head coaches and some assistant coaches. Anytime we have someone coming in to interview for a coaching position, all of us coaches who are around will sit in a room and we will talk with and interact with this potential new head coach. And when I walked into this, we have our VIP seat. We walked in and there are all of these head coaches looking at me. I'm going, oh my gosh, I have to remember why I'm here. It's because I know bowling, and this
Yep.
is all the things I had to remember. And I'm not sure what it was about my interview or who I am. I charmed the pants off of them. And I think it might have been because one of the questions I had gotten asked during the interview with all the head coaches is, how do you talk and train your kids on lane patterns? And wouldn't you know it, PBA had started using the blue oil.
Ah, okay.
So I found a video, pulled it up on my iPad, and showed all these coaches, well, check this out. This is what I'm going to do with our kids here to show them what the sport is really about. And it must have clicked in them. And a couple of weeks later, I got offered the job and I took it. I was definitely not going to pass up this opportunity at
Yeah.
all.
Wow, that's an incredible story.
It's a long story.
Hey, that's okay. That's okay. It's heartfelt. I asked Brent Prentice, who was on a previous episode of ours, about you, and he said that you're always positive and a great person for bowling on and off the lanes, and that your students are very fortunate.
Oh, thank you, Brent.
Yeah. Tell me about your reaction to that, and do you think that some of that is what landed you this job?
I'm turning red. I can feel. I don't. So, my people who meet me will say you're crazy. You have a crazy personality. I tell them it's because I'm passionate about this sport. This sport is why I'm here. It gets me to travel across the United States and the world, and I meet different people and I have friendships, and I can walk into a bowling center and be me. That's what I love about it. And so those people who say I'm crazy, it's really because I love what I do. And thank you, Brent. If you're watching, that's awesome. I'm now gonna have to drive up to Cedar Ball and go hug you. I'm sure one of my players, Spencer James, he is from the Twin Cities and he bowls at Cedar Ball during the summertime sweeper events. And I tell him, go find Brent, go tell him I said hi.
Yeah.
Because I missed going to there this year for the tour. I had to take the summer off, so maybe next time. Thank you, Brent.
Yeah. Spencer just happens to be an alum of one of the greatest high schools ever, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because that's where I went to high school.
Oh, you guys?
Robbinsdale Armstrong.
I should grab my phone and text him right now.
Is your mind blown?
Wow. We were, and in fact, Spencer and I had been talking. So I asked my men's team today. I wanted them to go research and find a PBA player they feel their physical game is similar to. And so Spencer and I had been texting a few minutes, probably about 30 minutes ago for whatever before we got on this, and we were discussing who he chose. And so that is so cool. I'll have to, if you're watching, Spencer.
Oh, he is.
Is he?
He is. He either is or was. And we'll get to that in a moment. But, once you take the job, you get to campus, and you've got to manage not just the men's team, but the women's team as well. So how do you do that at the same time?
Carefully. I was blessed when I took the job. I was blessed with having 1 year to recruit before we officially started the programs on the lanes in 2019. And so I had to plan accordingly. I had to figure out, I'm going to practice this team this time. We will potentially hire extra staff once the program gets bigger. With the schedules for both teams, I had to have, how shall I say, particular variables to work with to make sure my men's team wasn't going to get left out in the dark when I was traveling with the women's team. It has been a carefully synchronized dance with both teams.
Sure. And not to mention, it's a brand new program.
It is.
I asked Whitewater coach Sean Wachner about starting a new program, and he said he couldn't imagine trying to get, a new program off the ground, and that you're doing that. That's pretty high praise from a guy who's had a lot of success in the college game.
Yeah, I think he's saying it because he knows my men's team's going to be right up there with his men's team this year. I think that's what he's that. And he's probably going to text me right now if he's watching this because I spent a lot of time. So Sean and I also have college history too. So Sean is on the championship team who won 20 years ago. And so when he was winning with them, I was working in the industry and they were youngins when I met them for the first time when he was bowling for Western. And so, wow. Yeah. He, Sean is one of the coaches I ask a lot of questions to because he has created a successful men's program. And so when I think about my men's team and I think about what he has gone through to create his program, he's one of the first people I reach out to.
Yeah. You mentioned the men are in the Great Lakes Bowling Conference, and there are really a ton of teams there now. Just a lot of competition. And, how has it been there, for them competing in that conference?
So the first year when we started in 2019, 2020, we were typically finishing either in the middle of the pack or at least in the top 10. The team itself we had such a great amount of talent on the men's team in 2019, 2020. And so we were in the fourth tournament of the conference, and we found out we were going to make the match bracket play for the overall title of the conference. And lo and behold, we get seeded 8th and we get seeded against Whitewater. And so Whitewater beat us and Sean doesn't let me live it down at all. But it was nice to get out on the lanes with all the colleges from Wisconsin and from Minnesota and from Illinois and from Iowa to see what we were all about.
I want to bring you back to that match too, because Sean brought it up.
Oh, he did. Of course he did.
He said, you grab the 8th seed in the championship bracket. You got to go up against Whitewater. It's a close match. They survived. But as he remembered, the summer before, you told him that you were coming for Whitewater and you were going to beat them in conference play. Now, he did mention that you didn't do that in terms of total pins, but in this, when all the chips were down, your guys were right there.
It was close. Yeah, I remember telling him this. I think we were at Junior Gold 2018 in Dallas. I think I remember. No, or maybe it was 2019. No, it was in Detroit in 2019. I was telling him I think we were recruiting. We were both at TurboTech, and I was like looking at him. I'm going, just watch out. My man's going to beat your team. Just wait. Well, so you may not know this. I don't know if it's anywhere on there, but my 2019-2020 men's team did beat McKentry twice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Stop ladder. We finished third in the Lions Classic. It's the Lindenwood tournament down in the St. Louis area. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was with my women's team at the McKentry tournament when I found out.
Yeah. And for a situation like that, you've got an assistant coach who goes with the men.
We do.
His name is Peacock?
He used to be our assistant coach on our men's team. I know I believe he moved back to Illinois and he's now coaching a high school team again.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have a brand new coaching staff coming out.
Okay. Yeah. It wasn't because of the irony, right? That, his name.
I don't know. We have mutual friends, and I was wanting to find an assistant coach, and he happened to be available. I was like, okay, would you like to come on board? So, yeah. Cool. It was cool.
Yeah. Now, the women, it's a totally different thing. And for those who don't know, NCAA in bowling is a women's sport, but not on the men's side. So how are there differences between the two?
The format for NCAA women's bowling is different. We have recruiting rules. We have scholarship rules. We have competition rules. There's certain amount of days we can compete within a given schedule. Certain amount of hours we can be on the lanes as a team versus volunteer hours and workouts. It's almost a night and day difference between NCAA and USBC. And it can get quite complicated if we don't know the rules on the NCAA side.
Yeah. Being that you competed on the women's side in college bowling, Do you have kind of a soft spot for the women's team because that's where you came from?
Yeah. Originally, when I was looking for a college job, my focus was NCAA, and I apologize to my men's team who's listening to this. Originally, it was the goal, and so I do have a soft spot on the women's side because being a female, going out on the road for tour, knowing a lot of these ladies aspire to bowl on the tour. Yeah, absolutely. At the same time, though, my heart is with my men's team too. I mean, both teams. These kids have saved me. They may not think it, and I know we've had the bad days and the bad moments. These kids have saved me, both emotionally, mentally, physically, and so my heart is with both of them.
Wow, that's a powerful word. They saved you.
They did.
What if not for them? What are you?
So, I'm Nichole DePaul. That's who I am. I am a coach. I'm a PWBA tour player. I'm a DV8 staffer. I'm a friend, a person who loves dogs. I'm Nichole DePaul, and what the teams may not understand is those days when I had tears, and those days when I was angry, and those days when I had the worst stuff happen to me in my entire life. They were there for me, and so. To me, having them a part of this journey is the best thing ever. And it is because of that I continue to do what I love. I love what I do. And they may not always see it every day because I'm so hard on them. It's the excitement I get when they understand what they're doing out on the lanes, or they're getting A's in their classrooms, or they're winning awards. And it's because they're doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm not the one throwing the ball down there. I'm not the one in the class. I'm not the one who's picking the spares up to become an honorable mention. They're doing it, and they're doing it because they want to be a part of this journey with me. And so I love those kids. I do. I truly do. They don't think I do, but I do. I love my kids. I do.
Sure. You mentioned they may not see it all the time because you're hard on them, and being a coach, you got to have difficult conversations.
We do.
Where's the threshold there? How do you determine when, those hard conversations need to happen and when there needs to be praise?
And sometimes it's tough because I wear my heart on my sleeve. I am emotional. And I think it's because I had those struggles as a high school student all the way through till now. And I never, in any minute, second, day, year, I never want my kiddos to have these struggles. I want them to have everything they need and want. And so sometimes it's really hard for me to pinpoint when is a good time to have this difficult conversation with them, because I know there are times I have gotten angry, and I have gotten loud, and I have gotten emotional. And so over the last year and a half with the shutdown, I've really taken a hard look at who I am as a person, and have tried to figure out ways to connect with the kids, with the players, and not do it as like, I'm your coach, I'm your mentor, I'm your teacher. There's times I'm your friend. Sometimes I'm your mom. Sometimes I'm your dad. I don't know. It's that, when do you do it the right time? It's such a hard thing to find.
Yeah. And of course, like you said, you throw COVID in the mix, and, that kind of blows everything up. How did that affect what your teams, do there?
So when COVID hit, my women's team was still in Nashville, and we had been coming back up for Nashville from the Music City. The men's team was finished with our regular season. And we were not sure if we would have gotten a chance to get into postseason play because of where we finished. I think we finished 87th in the points rankings. So we were close. We just weren't close enough. Mm-hmm. And so when we got back from Nashville is when everything happened. It was, okay, are we going to have conference? If we're going to have conference, what are the protocols? Okay, well, then we started seeing men's teams or USBC teams dropping out of sectionals. And so I'm going to my AD. I said, there's a chance if USBC still holds sectionals and these teams are dropping out, they may go through and select other teams, and we may be going to sectionals next weekend or this weekend. And then everything shut down. 2 days. So conference for the women was still going on. We were still going to have it. They canceled it 2 days before we were supposed to travel. And then our university went and sent everybody home. And it was a really long summer with COVID. Luckily in Iowa, we had the centers back up and open in June. A lot of my players had no ability to practice until they got back to campus of August of last year. And we had the center working with us, and we were able to get on the lanes and practice. The women were able to do one tournament in the fall before the subsequent tournaments got canceled. And then we ended up with a full season on the men's side in the spring. And then the women got 4 more tournaments under their belt before we did GLVC conference.
Okay. All right. And, if I'm not mistaken, on the women's side, you've got McKendree in your conference, correct?
We do, yeah.
So how do you get them prepared to compete with what is really year in and year out a national powerhouse?
Absolutely, yeah. So it's not so much as competing against them; it's to have the women, the girls on my team understand we want to get to their level. We want to go into it to win tournaments, to win matches, to get to nationals. And so our mindset has got to be, we will do whatever it takes to become successful, whether it's work on our mindset, work on our classroom, work on our physical game. And so this year, we were underdogs going into conference. We were ranked number 6 in preseason poll for the GLVC, and we made it all the way through the bracket and finished 4th. We beat Drury. We beat Quincy. Our match against Maryville, it was frustrating. We were tired. We have mega matches, and so the match against Drury went to mega match game 7 of 4 out of 7 Baker. So we had been on the lanes for such a long period of time. My girls were exhausted. We tried. We tried. And so to know we are showing the McKendree, Maryville, Central Missouri, hey, we can compete with you and against you was priceless. We beat Nebraska at their own home center in Lincoln. And we did because we were focused on throwing great shots. So McKendree, we're going to see McKendree every year. Mm-hmm. And I think eventually we will get to the level of McKendree. It's going to take some time, but we're going to do it.
Yeah. And similarly on the men's side, you've got a national power there too. So how do you prepare for UW Milwaukee?
So what we do is we try to bowl tournaments where we're going to, you said Milwaukee, you mean Whitewater.
No, I meant Milwaukee.
You said Milwaukee. Yeah, Milwaukee's a powerhouse too. Hi, Chad. Yeah. So what we do is we try to go to the same tournaments where a lot of the powerhouses are going to get the experience, and then also try to go to some of the bigger tournaments, like all the Tier 1 events, where we're going to see teams like Pikeville, McKendree, Lindenwood, now they're Roosevelt University, some of the East Coast teams. And heck, if you think about it, we have Mount Mercy an hour and a half away from us. Yeah. We see them at almost every tournament on the men's side we go to. There's a couple we don't see them at. And William Penn, they're not far from us either. And Clark University. Yeah, we've got powerhouses here in the state. And so we've got to make sure we're ready for them.
Yeah. It sounds like physical fitness is a part of what you do with your teams too. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So we have a dedicated strength and conditioning coach who works with both the teams. They get to work out twice a week at 7 a.m. and they hate it. It's changing for this upcoming year with our schedule. But I want to make sure they're working out. Bowling is, people say, oh, it's not a lot of stamina. And I said, you stand for 8 hours throwing a 15-pound bowling ball for 30, 40 times in a day, and then you tell me how you feel. Because I will tell you how I feel after bowling 8 games in a couple of hour block and then have to come back and then bowl 8 more in the same day. I'd love people to try it. So they work out. They hate it, but they do it.
Yeah. Having the Brands of Brunswick, sponsor your teams is pretty big for any program, let alone a newer program. So tell me about, the benefits for your players when it comes to having the right bowling ball in their hand for these changing conditions that they face.
So I got on DV8 staff in 2014. Mike Austin runs a pro shop in Houston, and I was gunning for a staff position. Brunswick has been a part of my life for a long time. In fact, going back to my 300 game, I threw it with a Brunswick ball.
Oh, there you go.
Demon, yeah, zone ball. And so when I found out I was getting this coaching position, Brunswick was the first company I reached out to, because I said to my product specialist at the time when I lived in Illinois, Mike Dole, I said, I want my teams throwing our brands, and we need to do whatever it takes to make sure I get those brands in my kids' hands. I will bend over backwards as a staff member. I'll go to demo, whatever. I don't care. All I know is I want us to have Brunswick. And so my first year as a college coach, Brunswick gave us the green light, signed on the dotted line, got the contract, and they have supported us the last couple of years. Recently, we signed a multi-year deal with them, and now throwing the 7 brands, our arsenals are getting better and stronger, more adaptable. I'm able to create arsenals for these players, which are individualized to them. Each player, not have 10 bowling ball or 10 of the same bowling balls, and that's it. I've got so many options. And so, it's great. I am showing them this brand. And they're excited too, because what I'd love to see is in a couple of years, some of these players who want to get out on the tour, men's and women's tour, they're throwing my brand now, getting them on staff, seeing them become successful. That's what I want to see happen.
Sure. What's it like coaching a two-handed player?
I love it. I do. I know there's some coaches who are, they just don't like two-handed. I get it. Hey, to each your own. Mm-hmm. I love having two-handers. I love having single-handers. I love having lefties. I love having two-handed lefties. They're awesome. In fact, this year on the women's team, I have my first two-handed female coming from Texas. Yes. Oh. And she's talented. She is so talented. She has been scaring the two-handers on my men's team. Sorry, guys. Yeah, and I also I got my first two-handed lefty coming in as well from Virginia. And I'm excited about him because having that two-handed lefty is also going to help create some more dynamic on the left side for us.
Yeah. You mentioned all those states your recruits are coming from.
Yeah.
Sean also said it's an extremely difficult era to recruit and compete, due to all the growth in college bowling, and that as long as you remain focused on your vision for the program and work to bring in the players that help you achieve that, you guys could be a threat.
Well, thank you, Sean. I'm turning red. Well, that's really nice of him to say about me. Thank you. I wasn't expecting that either. So thank you.
Yeah.
My goal, and I tell this to a lot of people. I also tell this to coaches, and now I'm telling the world, if you will. Mm-hmm. I want diversity on my two teams. I don't want to stick in Iowa alone. And the reason I say it is because I am competing with Whitewater, who's in Wisconsin, Mount Mercy, who's an hour and a half away from me, William Penn, Clark University, Coe College has got a program, Iowa Central, Greg and his programs. And so if I expand my vision outside of the standard Midwest area, I think I can create two programs which will threaten those top tier programs, because all they have to do is say their name and they've got players. Eventually, I'd like to get a player from all 50 states. I'd like to have at least one player from every state come through my program. That's a goal.
Sure. But the foundation of all this, wherever they're from, whatever they do on the lanes, they've got to be a good fit academically there, right?
Yes, they do. Yes. And being a former educator, I scream education, 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 education. If it wasn't for my college degrees, I would not be in this position right now. And so I tell them, if you aspire to do something, case in point, a couple of the gentlemen, they want to coach one day. You want to get the college degree so you can get this experience under your belt to utilize when you're doing your college programs. I am all about grades. And if you are not cutting it in the classroom, you're not going to get to bowl. You're not going to get to compete. And you're going to have to bring your grades up. Yeah, education. Absolutely.
Yeah. So tell me about kind of moving forward. You have I've heard that on a podcast called Pin for Pin, you guys are hosting an NCAA tournament in another year or so.
Yeah, so we are going to host our first NCAA tournament in January of this season in Waterloo at Cadillac. We so far have, I think it's 12, I think I'm up to 12 teams now, which is awesome because you don't think as a first, we're technically a second year program to now have all college teams wanting to come to your tournament and bowl it. And so having this platform to host an NCAA tournament, and it will end up being the same weekend every year. If we as a program on the women's team continue to get bigger and better and stronger, then we will start getting those top 24, top 25 teams to come to our tournament. And I'd love to see this tournament turn into like a Music City event where Vanderbilt gets 30 teams, or even when the Big Red tournament in Lincoln, Nebraska, they have 12 teams. But if you look at the fields of the teams coming in to get that, I'd love to see it. And eventually we'll try to put together a USBC tournament for the men and the women as well. Because I'd love to be able to host a tournament on that side for the men.
Sure. You are also, getting back to individual competition on your own. Right. You were supposed to get into the Lucy doubles in Texas a short time ago. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. You had a car crash that you talked about on social media. Apart from that part of it, how do you move forward and get past that?
So as I start looking ahead, I'm going to focus on getting myself into the full swing of 2022 on the tour. I did have to miss this season with a wrist injury I had gotten back in January. And so it took a long time for me to rehab, to feel confident in everything I was able to do. And there were some time periods where I wasn't ready, and I felt like Lucy was the time for me to go. And so goal right now is once the teams get back on campus, I get myself back on a practice schedule outside of my coaching duties, and then do my tour prep again back in January, or coming again in January, and then start getting ready. I've gotten the full blessing of going back out on the road full time at the end of April. So if I think, I'm guessing this is the way the schedule is going to work out. I have a feeling we're going to do Midwest first, and then West Coast, and then East Coast. It seems like we kind of flip around between the East Coast and the West Coast, only because Queens and Women's Championship is going to be back in Addison in 2022.
Okay. You mentioned the wrist. I mean, Brent says not only do you always have great things to say about Cedarvale, but he hopes you're healing well.
Oh, I am. It was a freak thing. I think I remember how I have my brace on right now, and I've been keeping it on more recently because it's been affecting me after the car accident. So there's this little bone on the top of your wrist. I cracked it somehow, and I fractured it, but it wasn't enough for me to really notice it until I started picking up bowling balls and then throwing them.
Okay.
And then I also had a minor tear in the section of where bone or ligaments and stuff. And so I'm much better than I was before, and doing proactive to make sure I'm not hurting myself again, so I can get ready in next year's season.
Good.
Thanks, Brent.
Yeah, best of luck to you with all that. I've got a stack of comments here.
Oh my God.
Some of them are similar. Andrew Willems.
Yes.
Feathers up.
Yeah, so I know he tagged me in the post. So he is my new graduate assistant coach for the men's and women's team. I hired him a couple weeks ago.
Okay. And what does he do as a graduate assistant?
So he is going to help support both my teams, and then I'm going to train him on all of the great things on NCAA with the rules and the requirements and the competition. And then he's also going to do traveling with my men's team when I have a varsity and a junior varsity going to a tournament. He's going to help drill bowling balls, coaching on the lanes, off the lanes, mentor all of the players. We've got a whole slew of things we're going to do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Let's see. Here's another feathers up from Matthew Moore.
So, one of my players. Hi, Matthew.
Okay. All right. And and where's he from, and what's he all about?
He is from Bethalta. I think I said it right. Illinois. He's near the St. Louis area. He is also a dual sporter. He does trap shooting for Upper Iowa.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
and he's good too.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Our boy Spencer James says feathers up.
Thank
Armstrong Zone.
Yeah, Spencer. I was lucky to grab him because he's from the Twin Cities area, and so he was one of the few towards the end of the commitment process where I grabbed him. And what got me interested in him, I had seen him wearing a DV8 jersey while bowling in a competition for a collegiate expo. I was like, oh, I got to get that kid. He's wearing a DV8 shirt.
So you're saying these recruits could have the weirdest physical game you've ever seen as long as they're wearing the right brand, yet there might be a chance?
Well, hey, you'd be surprised. Sometimes those unique and weird physical games are what wins titles.
That's true. You got that right.
Yeah.
Wayne Holcomb.
One of my teammates from the DV8 brand. Yep. And he's from the Nashville area. He stopped by when we were in Smyrna, Tennessee for the women's tournament. He was down there to support us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Matthew again says it gets me every day.
He thinks he's got props.
Well,
him and his dad jokes.
Andrew. Yeah. See, that's the problem with this format that I have is there's like things that are specific to things we say and it doesn't match up at the end and all that stuff. I like this one though because we're on the same page there with Spencer.
Yeah. I am so blessed to have a program, 2 programs, and the players. These kids, they're amazing kids. They really are.
Yeah. Christine Rebstock, who was on a previous episode of this show, says that she's ultra impressed on how you built both teams from scratch, and it's great to see all the progress your teams have made. Good luck in the upcoming season.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was a lot of hard work, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, a lot of recruiting. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So as you know, we do this thing on the show called Off the Sheet, where I ask you to challenge somebody else and skill level, we can throw that out the window, is somebody who is passionate about the sport and who has a unique story to tell. So, Nichole DePaul, who would you like to challenge?
How many can I do? Can I do a couple?
Please. Yeah, absolutely.
Dasha Kovalova.
Okay.
Have you had her on the show yet?
I have not. Nope.
Oh, Dasha and I, yeah, I love Dasha. She's Queen's winner. She won a title this year. She won back-to-back at Louisville. Her artistic talent, if you've never seen some of her artwork, oh my gosh, find her bowling page or Instagram page. Yeah. What she did when we were during COVID shutdown is she would take bowling balls on the brands and then create these beautiful digital artwork. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Dasha, if you're watching, I got you, girl.
Absolutely.
And then Chuck Gardner, have you had Chuck yet?
Nope.
Oh, Chuck, I don't know how I can ever thank Chuck Gardner. He helped me recruit, or not so much as help me recruit, but he helped with the recruiting of some of the players who are both for life scholarship winners. He has been on my side since I met him in person. What he does for the youth is amazing. So I would see him on the show. Did you have Parker Bone the third yet?
No.
Oh, Parker too. Yeah, Parker too. So maybe those 3.
He probably won't remember this, but Parker beat the crap out of me in 2003 in Marshfield, Wisconsin. He was doing an expo, and I was there as a sports reporter for a TV station I was working at. And again, a good way to get bowling into the newscast. He beat me on the lanes, and then he put me in a chair like 45 feet down the lane.
Oh, did he throw the ball underneath
the chair and struck?
And he still does that. Did you know he still does that? And
I believe it.
He does it.
I believe it. Okay, so Dasha, Chuck, Parker, please, if you're interested, come find me. You can DM me on Facebook. You can email me at bowlingwiththepfeff@yahoo.com. We would love to have you on the show. Our next live stream is coming up Tuesday, August 17th, 6 p.m. Central. Nichole, it has been a pleasure. Getting to know you and your bowling story. Continued success for you and your teams as we enter a new season of bowling.
Thank you. And make sure you watch us, Upper Iowa Peacocks. We start our first week of practice in about 4 weeks. Oh my gosh. They're going to be here soon enough. I can't believe it.
Yeah, absolutely. Any social pages that we should be following to find out about the team, or if there's a potential recruit out there?
Yeah, so Upper Iowa Bowling, we have it on Facebook, on Twitter, and then also you can reach out to me on my PWBA page, Nichole DePaul, PWBA. I also have Twitter and Instagram, same thing. Feel free, reach out to me anytime. Anything about bowling, anything about chemistry, maybe some coaching.
Yeah. And if you don't remember that stuff, you can get with me. I'll make the connection.
Yeah, please.
We'll have fans and hopefully recruits maybe at your door.
You never know. I love fans. I love the fans. That's the best part about this job.
All right. Well, hey, thanks again. Everybody be just and fear not. We will see you next week.
Bye, everybody.